All right, how is everyone doing today? And welcome to my channel. This channel's for educational purposes. And we check out great theories, concepts, and discoveries that you're probably not familiar with, things that have been suppressed, things that the powers that be don't want you to know about, and, to a certain extent, you don't want to know about because these are things that, test you, uh, that question your most cherished beliefs. And so, if you are even here, um, you deserve some credit for being a real truther, for, um, being willing to listen to different opinions and to challenge your faith and your beliefs. And this is a segment that we do called Your Blind Side. And this is for the truthers and the patriots and the diggers out there who, um, may be slightly preoccupied with their own digs and what they're doing with the info war to be able to dig a little bit deeper into their um, conditionings and their upbringings and things that they picked up when they were just very young, um, things that are a little bit more primal. I think, a lot of us have been red pilled, but a lot of that red pilling has been more on the surface, things that are not, um, uh, that are more peripheral, not directly cutting to the heart of, you know, our identity, our um, uh, our emotional um, kind of our heart, the things that we really feel have shaped us as a human being. A lot of the things that we have questioned and that we have dug up as far as, this didn't really happen, this was a psyop, this was a hoax, this was a false flag. These are things that, happen in the news. These are things that we, were expected to buy into when we were adults. Um, and, we have the reaction, oh, I've been lied to. Somebody wasn't telling me the truth, and I'm exposing this falsity. But the truther movement has not, at to this point, dug deep enough into their more cherished and closer to home belief systems. The ones that go back much further, they go back to um, what we learned when we were growing up as a young child, from our parents and from, um, in the tree of life, you call it the ninth sphere, the domestic um, conditionings, um, what we learned from our loved ones, and the rituals and traditions that we picked up from them. And a lot of times we hold those things very dear to because we have very good memories of them. We can remember, going with our loved ones to these various rituals and events. Um, we can remember feeling, uh, a feeling of love or a feeling of closeness. Um, and I'm not, I'm not telling you that these feelings are all wrong, but I am saying that the beliefs that they kind of represent very well could be wrong, because we've we have a situation where it's psychological operations, hoaxes, false flags, fakery, you know, all the way back, all the way back to the beginning of time. There wasn't a specific time when the psyop started, where like the beginning of the CIA or something like that, or the beginning of the Illuminati, or you know, uh, and before that, things were up on the up and up. But then after that, that's when you know, the powers that be started to deceive us. They've been deceiving us from the very, very start. And the Patriots have got to get that through their heads, or really into their hearts, because this is going to be the undoing of this movement. And as I've been saying, this is a movement that the Patriots are winning, or I would even say have won. The globalists have been defeated. They're done. They there might be a few whimpers left in them. They might be able to carry out a false flag or two. I'm not saying that there is no danger from them, but I'm saying that the general uh, the general battle is over. They've even waved the white flag in some cases, and they just don't have any real energy left. And they're going to have to go back to the drawing board at best, and maybe come up with something else. But I don't even think they have time for that. And so the Patriots have won. But what that means is that the Patriots are now in charge of governing. And it's a lot harder to actually govern than to complain about the government. Um, and that's the transition that has to be made. And when you are in the position of governing, you've got to have things right. And the unfortunate thing is that the Patriots do not have their religion right. They are believing in a false religion. The New Testament of the Bible is a psyop. It was written by the Romans. It was written by Josephus. Whoever Josephus was the author of a 7-volume work called War of the Jews, a history book of um, an account of the war between the Romans and the Jews from 66 to 73 AD. And this same story is the model and really the template and really the code for the Gospels, a story of Jesus. The story of Jesus is the story of General Titus, the Roman general who engaged in the siege of Jerusalem in 69 and 70 AD. And the military campaign of Titus is identical to the ministry of Jesus. Every place that Titus goes, Jesus goes in the same order. And they participate in parallel events at each location. Titus usually participates in the events in a literal manner. Jesus participates in the events in a symbolic manner. Moreover, now what the Romans did is that they wrote the story of the New Testament and then they backdated the story by 40 or 50 years, placing it in a much earlier period during the reign of Emperor Tiberius in the 20s and 30s AD. And that way, the prophecies that are made by Jesus miraculously come true in the pages of War of the Jews. And in particular, the um, prophecy that Jesus makes about his second coming, the second coming of the Son of Man, is marked by the utter destruction of the city of Jerusalem. Not two stones will remain upon another, or some such language. And that literally is described by Josephus in the War of the Jews. And the agent who led to that result was General Titus. This means that General Titus, who eventually becomes Emperor Titus, is the second coming of Jesus. The Romans wrote themselves in to the lineage of the Jews. That was part of the psychological operation by the Romans. And you have to remember that the Romans were masters of psychological operations and masters of creating false religions. They created a bunch of them here in the first century, and Christianity was just one of many. So it's right exactly down the alley of the MO for the Romans. This is exactly what the Romans would do. And moreover, as a veteran of psychological operations, one who has done the digging and looked into the Federal Reserve and Pearl Harbor and the Kennedy assassination and so on and so forth, you know what a psychological operation now looks like. And if you read your New Testament in light of your reading of Josephus, you will see that the New Testament looks exactly like a psyop. Unfortunately, this is not a popular belief, and this is not one that is held by your friends and family. This is not one that is going to be easy for you to swallow. And so you have going to have a tendency to want to just ignore it and um, uh, sweep it under the rug, and to not mention it and not bring it up, and um, virtue signal whenever the next person that comes into the chat, or the next person who comes on your show, who virtue signals for Jesus, or virtue signals for the Bible, or virtue signals for Christianity. And everybody just goes into a trance and says, "Oh, I believe and I have faith, and this is my faith." And yeah, well, if you have faith, it means that you do not have truth. Truth is like the opposite of faith. And um, faith is useful if you don't have access to the truth. But there is a ton of evidence that the Romans are the true authors of the New Testament. And there is zero evidence that Jesus actually existed. I challenge you to give me any. The only evidence that you can give me is Roman. It will always be Romans who corroborate the existence of Jesus and nobody else, because it's fiction and it didn't happen. And um, as a movement, we are moribund, and we will be not able to move forward because we have an immature movement. We have a movement that will not go to the truth. It's a truther movement, but the truth is um, unfortunately not what you want it to be. And so you're going to ignore it. And we're going to try to move into the golden age with our immature beliefs intact. And we're being pandered to do so by the administration and by the 17th letter. And they know better. They know that the Bible, the New Testament, is a psychological operation. And in fact, the Old Testament is also fraudulent for different reasons. But they know that you don't know that. And so they're going to continue to pander to you until you stand up for yourself and tell them that this is also a psyop and that they're going to need to do better. Okay, so that is the end of what I'm talking about today for Your Blind Side. Like, share, subscribe, comment, contribute, and we'll see you next time. But keep in mind and remember to watch your blind side.